All right, thank you very much for that introduction, Lissa, and good morning, everyone. My name is David Butcher, and as Lissa said, I'm the FAIR Data Management Specialist at the MagLab. We appreciate all of you for being here, and I'd like to offer special thanks to all the speakers we'll be hearing from today. This is the first time the MagLab has organized an event for our users focused entirely on FAIR data, and hopefully it won't be the last time that we talk about this important subject. And before going any further, I would like to launch a quick poll. So we can assess what people's familiarity with the concept of FAIR is this morning. And I'll just leave it up on the screen for a few seconds here to give everyone time to answer. Just a single yes or no question. Okay, we have almost everyone participating. I'll just give it a few more seconds in case there's anyone who hasn't joined in yet. Okay, so right now it looks like we have about an 80-20 split in favor of folks knowing what FAIR stands for. So that's an encouraging result. I'll go ahead and share that result. All right, so we have 36 out of 45 current attendees saying that they know what FAIR stands for. So that is actually quite positive. I'm glad that since we've been throwing the term around a lot, people generally seem to know what it means. Okay, so to get started, first I'd like to provide some context for today's workshop. The FAIR principles, which are shown here, were first drafted by a group of stakeholders from across academia and industry in a workshop convened in 2014 called Jointly Designing a Data Fairport. They were later refined by a working group of the organization Force 11 and published in 2016 in the Nature publication Scientific Data. And the citation for that seminal paper is here at the bottom. The FAIR principles specify that for good data management and stewardship, data should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, and provide various conditions that should be met to make sure that each of those conditions is satisfied. According to the original publication, the notion behind the initial development of the principles was that through the definition of and widespread support for a minimal set of community-agreed guiding principles and practices, all stakeholders could more easily discover, access, appropriately integrate and reuse, and adequately cite the vast quantities of information being generated by contemporary data-intensive science. In the years since that original publication, the FAIR principles have been heavily discussed and expanded upon by a variety of organizations and institutions as part of a broader open science movement. The primary motivation for holding this workshop is that the MagLab is working towards making all data collected across our 7 user facilities FAIR. One of the most important reasons for this is that since the MagLab is funded largely by a core grant from the National Science Foundation Division of Materials Research, the expectation for our users is that the data acquired at the MagLab be shared in accordance with the NSF's data sharing policy, which is found on their page for dissemination and sharing of research results. The policy reads, investigators are expected to share with other researchers at no more than incremental cost and within a reasonable time, the primary data, samples, physical collections, and other supporting materials created or gathered in the course of work under NSF grants. Grantees are expected to encourage and facilitate such sharing. Since all data acquired at the MagLab is in fact gathered in the course of work under an NSF grant, this data sharing policy applies to it. Of course, this policy also has caveats. Additional language in the NSF's Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide relates to the protection of privileged or confidential information, national security, and intellectual property. For user projects, those concerns will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. NSF is also not the only major funding organization that requires grantees share their data. The National Institutes of Health, the largest funder of health research in the world, has a long-standing statement on sharing research data that reads, the NIH expects and supports the timely release and sharing of final research data from NIH-supported studies for use by other researchers, in part. Other funding organizations, including large private funders like Wellcome Trust and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, also have similar policies. We believe that by adhering to the FAIR principles, we can be sure that we're satisfying the expectations of both our own and our users' funding organizations. In addition, we can be sure we're satisfying the editorial requirements of major publishers because, in recent years, there's been a push from many major publishers towards accessibility of data used in publications. Major publishers like Science, Nature Portfolio, and PLOS all have statements that require authors to make data available. For example, the policy at Science reads, "The science journals generally require all data underlying the results in published papers to be publicly and immediately available. Post-publication embargoes are not permitted, nor are stipulations for readers to contact the authors." The part about not needing to contact authors is particularly important since contacting authors for data can lead to a lack of response or a refusal to actually share the data, which is a situation that I've personally been in multiple times. Several other major publishers, such as Elsevier and the American Chemical Society, also have policies that strongly encourage data sharing if it isn't absolutely mandatory. Policies can vary greatly across journals within a publisher's portfolio, with some having no special requirements, some requiring only a data availability statement that lets readers know where they can get the data, and some requiring a data availability statement and complete open access to the data in a public repository. Given that editorial standards are continually evolving, it won't be surprising if more journals and more publishers shift towards policies like those from Science, Nature Portfolio, and PLOS. By making our data fair, we're putting our data in a form that allows it to be more easily published and helps us stay ahead of the curve. But of course, making data fair is not just about satisfying requirements of funding organizations or publishers. It also provides a variety of benefits to the researchers who bear the primary responsibility for managing their data. Many benefits of fair data have been discussed in the literature, but there are some reoccurring primary benefits which I've shown here. One of the most important benefits is enabling reuse of data. The FAIR principles particularly emphasize reusability by humans and machines. The data generated by global research efforts nowadays are often already too large or too numerous for humans to effectively reuse. Enabling reuse by machines facilitates applications in big data and machine learning, the benefits of which are only beginning to be realized. Making data fair also allows broader access to the products of research across the global scientific community. The MagLab generates world-class data using world-class instrumentation, so sharing that data widely has the possibility to make a very large impact. Fair data can also provide a greater return on investment. All research, of course, has a certain embodied cost, not just in terms of dollars from funding organizations, but in terms of person hours spent by the researchers conducting the research. Making data fair increases the opportunity for getting more from that initial investment. Fair data also facilitates replication of findings. There's been a lot of discussion about the replication crisis in science over the past couple of decades. While this crisis affects some fields more strongly than others, those of us in the fields of physics, chemistry, and other related fields shouldn't think of ourselves as immune to those concerns. This pithy comment from Florian Markovets, senior group leader at the Cancer Research UK Cambridge Institute, summarizes the situation well. If you don't work reproducibly, you are not doing science at all. Reproducibility is, of course, fundamental to the process of science, and making data fair helps to ensure that fundamental requirement is met. Expansion on existing results is also another major benefit. Data that is fair can be more easily expanded upon. From a researcher's perspective, that means more citations and more related publications. Overall, these benefits taken together translate to greater impact overall for the products of research. So given all those benefits, how does the MagLab plan to support users in making data fair? Among other activities, we plan to promote awareness of the FAIR principles by developing FAIR-aligned data management plans and teaching users and staff best practices for FAIR data management and access. We plan to provide support in the capture, structure, and formatting of data and metadata to adhere to open, machine-actionable community standards. We plan to provide support in the use of FAIR-aligned data repositories. We also plan to interface with international organizations such as Research Data Alliance, Force 11, GoFair, and MARTA, the Materials Research Data Alliance, to survey existing and emerging community standards for making data fair. And last but not least, we want to communicate the MagLab's FAIR data progress with other user facilities, especially those under the NSF Division of Materials Research. We're grateful to have speakers from several user facilities here today who will talk about their efforts on the FAIR data front. And we hope that this can be the beginning of a long-term collaboration where we share tools and knowledge to make our collective efforts more effective. Now, changing gears a little bit, I'd just like to discuss the results from the survey that we conducted during registration for this workshop. In the interest of making things as open as possible, I've deposited the data and the code for generating these figures at my GitHub page, and the link is provided at the bottom of the slide. The data has, of course, had all personally identifying information removed. Respondents were asked to rate their familiarity with the FAIR principles on a scale of 1 to 5, and over 80% said that they were at least a 3 out of 5. Hopefully after today's workshop, we can bring everyone at the 1 or 2 level up to at least a 4 or 5. Another question asked, do you or members of your group disseminate research data via publicly accessible repositories? A majority at 55% said yes, but 45% said either I'm not sure or no. To me, this suggests that some research groups might benefit from starting a discussion about their use of data repositories internally. If you don't use them, why not? Should you consider using them? The most popular responses for the follow-up question to this question, which was simply why not, were no appropriate or compatible repositories exist for my data, and it takes too much time and effort. But a scattering of other responses were also picked by at least one person, including difficulties capturing metadata required by the repository, and I prefer not to make my data publicly accessible because others cannot or will not interpret the data correctly, which maybe more people can relate to. Respondents were also asked to complete the following sentence. I think that ensuring that the data I produce are fair, blank. The most popular response by far at 60% was that it takes more time or effort than I'd like, but can technically be done. To give you an idea of the scope of this problem, a majority of the people who are speaking in today's workshop, and I won't name anyone by name, but the majority of the people who are speaking are included in that 60% figure. These are people who are, for the most part, FAIR data experts, and even they say it takes more time and effort than they'd like. It's encouraging to see that only 6% of respondents said that it was extremely challenging or impossible, and hopefully we can help to allay some of those concerns today. We also asked whether respondents would be willing to work with us to ensure that all products of research related to their user proposal adhere to the FAIR principles. About 2/3 of respondents said yes, which is nice to see. Hopefully those that are not sure will see some things today that will make them want to become active participants. And for the single respondent who gave us a flat out no, we sincerely appreciate your honesty, but we still want to change your mind. So finally, I'll just summarize by saying that we look forward to hearing your feedback about how we at the MagLab can work together with users to make our data more fair. This workshop is for the users, and one of the most important things we need to do is to get your feedback to determine whether or not what we're doing is reasonable and helpful. So please don't be a stranger and feel free to talk to us about it. And if anyone wants to ask any FAIR-related questions outside of this workshop, my email address is right here at the bottom. Please feel free to contact me anytime.